because it's time to write now.
Right 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 now.
Because it's time to write now.
Right now.
Right.
And we are live. Welcome back to another Right Now Writers group. Sol, Dana, I'm so happy to have you both joining me as we are in our 54th, 50th, 55. We're in one of our meetings. Welcome. We are here every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, as we meet up and chat with other writers in the community. We just see what type of writing nonsense, what writing dynamics, and what is on our mind. Make sure to stick around. We'll do a little bit of some writing sprints in just a little bit, try to get in some writing, and that's what I got. Y'all know me as Kaufman, working on the fantasy novel, The Last Scarecrow. I am working today on this crazy fight scene, as y'all know, for those of you who've been joining me in the sprints lately, as we are trying to see what happens when Scarecrow and 100 different animals are put into an arena. So I'm going to be continuing to explore that today, and that is me. Let me show up my fellow writers here. So I'll kick it over to you.
So everyone knows me as Chat Soul. Tonight I'm working on another fan fiction, and not that I've stopped working on Bound by Song, but I am at the stage where I am just working mainly on the cover and starting to do some edits for like the early chapters. So kind of just in between, I guess, like the official writing projects.
Awesome. Thank you. So always glad to have you here with me. All 54, 55 meetings and counting. Wonderful. And Dana, I'm so happy to have you back with us. I know it's been a little while. For anybody who's just hopping in their stream or might not know you, you just want to give a quick intro and then what you're working on today?
For today, I am writing a practice piece, which is what I call my fan fiction, because I've come up with a great Indiana Jones Phantom crossover, which I think will be a lot of fun. Other than that, I'm kind of in a dry spell, but I still have 3 months to do to my publishers, so publishers, plural.
Awesome.
It happens.
It sounds like we're all working on a variety of different projects. You know, it's kind of interesting when we have different things that we're working on. How do you guys decide what to write next, or what do you guys like? How do you decide what's like the right thing to be writing?
Depends on the vibe for myself. How important are the projects that I'm working on? How invested am I in that exact moment? Am I working on something? Do I really need to be working on something that needs to be published? Or am I just working on something because I'm bored of the other things and need to take a quick break? Or is it something that, well, I just can't get my mind off of? Right now, with the fan fiction I'm working on, it's a combination of there's nothing really more to do with Bound by Song in terms of writing outside of editing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also kind of stuck on this fan fiction that, surprisingly, despite the 8 chapters, I have not posted any of it on AO3 yet, so.
Wow. That definitely sounds like you've been having a lot of fun. I know with your most recent one. Are you going to go strong with it until you're done?
Probably. What I usually like to do with my own fan fictions is get at least like 5 or 6 chapters done before I post them. That way, like, I'm less likely to abandon the project, even though it's going to take me like several months to actually get it done. But I feel like if I do, like, let's say 20 chapters and I post each chapter at a time, I feel more pressure to finish it compared to if I do 20 chapters and publish 5 or 6 at a time. So with this one, I may not start posting it until it's about midway through, which, depending on the direction I go with this one, I actually might be getting to the midway point already. If not this chapter, then pretty soon.
That's actually pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting. It sounds like you've made a lot of progress.
This is the one I was working on last week too. That I did like nearly 2,000 in our whole stream.
Oh my goodness. So I don't know if anybody can write as fast as you can.
There's been a couple people in the community that have beat me. So, granted, it's only
Yeah.
been like once or twice, but still.
And I know you said you're in a bit of a dry spell now. How do you usually decide what to work on next?
I've kind of decided to do what I did before when I hit a point where
Hmm.
I had decided I'm going to stop writing, I'm done. And I'm like,
Hmm.
no, you're not done. And so I went back to fan fiction, which I do for fun
Hmm.
because deadlines,
Ooh.
no nothing. It's just, let's take this idea and run with it.
Yep.
I actually
Hmm.
am almost done with one that I don't think I've worked on for a couple of years. I won't be working on that today,
Hmm.
uh, but it's got a pretty good following. Between, just to explain this one story I was working on, I worked on it for a while. 8 years later, I went back to it. So I have a little bit different work thing right now. I just want to get back into writing, and I'm like, well, let's play with fan fiction for a little while, and then go back to the books you're supposed to be writing.
Mm.
So for me, that's what fan fiction is. It's fun and it's practice.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is for me too. Is it's fun and it's practice, and I guess I take it a little. I guess I take, but I also take it a little more seriously. But only because I actually do seem to have a small following on AO3. People have actually been commenting on my stories and have been wondering if I'm going to be continuing. And it's just like, okay, so people are actually reading and liking it, but I'm still treating it. I'm treating it more like I don't absolutely have to do this, but it's fun and it makes me happy. So
Yeah. And where I'm at right now, I've been reading a lot of the Phantom comics, and I got my handle of some of the novels, which I'm studying to see what the writing style was. And trust me, it is completely different than modern storytelling. We were written in the 1930s. So it's also been an interesting study in the different, how the writing has changed and evolved.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it's really interesting to see how our writing evolves over time. I know I look back on like when I even from last year when I first started on Scarecrow, and like I know I've been writing most of my life, and I know writing is rewriting and growing. But even just starting on this book, I feel like I'm a much better writer than when I started on page one, chapter one of this book last year. I think part of that growth has been from making mistakes, learning from it, and then also being a part of a community where we can learn from others.
oh yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
know I've looked. I know that's actually kind of one reason why I did a rewrite of my first fan fiction because it wasn't bad. It was just I saw my improvements like several months later, and it's like I could do better with this, and I liked it so well, and I love that main. I love the original character I created. He's honestly one of my favorites, and it's like I want to see what I can do with this and see how much I've improved. And I feel like I'm reading a different author. I really do because I just improved that much from the first one, and it's like, holy crap, this is actually really cool seeing the differences.
One of the things I do is in my fan fiction, I will go back and look and see how I've evolved. One thing I don't do is I don't rewrite anything, because otherwise all I'd be doing is rewriting every all the time. And it's like I've got like I don't know how many stories posted, way too many to go back and do that.
Yeah, I
But
get
fan
that.
fiction was my practice ground, and sometimes I go back to it just to like get me back into writing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I honestly don't think I would have rewritten this one had I not enjoyed it so much and thought I could do better. I think honestly, if I hadn't liked it as nearly as much as I did, I probably would have been like, what if I wrote like a spin-off of this? So, you know, like write one of the moments that wasn't in that wasn't in this one, but like a missing chapter kind of thing, and then just added to it. But nah, I just like the character too much. And I've like I've looked at the others, I've reread through all my others, and I don't want to redo any of them. But yeah, no, but I actually had kind of enjoyed looking back and being like, this wasn't bad, but there is like so much difference in
Mm-hmm.
like everything from grammar to wording choice to sentence structure, even from something I wrote in mid July of last year to something that I posted like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I can go back a lot farther than that because I actually started publishing fan fiction in 1997.
Nice.
Went pro in 2011, which means I was submitting in 2010 and it came out in 2011. So
Wow.
it's
Hmm.
it's so I've got a long history writing, and I've watched myself just improve. And compared to what I
Hmm.
was doing in high school, and I've got some of that published work, it's like in our high school literary magazine. I've come a long way from there, from mimicking what I was studying as for the masters we're doing to kind of learning all the rules and then breaking the rules and doing it well.
Yep.
Well, I think it's definitely clear that we've been working and writing for a while. I know each of us have our own different experience and background, but I think we can agree that it's such a journey throughout each phase of whatever the writing journey looks like.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just want to welcome Kaylee into the stream. Welcome, welcome. Kaylee said, you said, I'm working on a first draft. I already started it. How do you know when you're done planning and should start writing your story?
Oh, that's a
Ooh,
good
that's a great
question.
question. Yeah, that's a really good question. When you guys want to take it first?
I'll actually take that first. Let me show you something. This is my writing Bible right here, which was literally years in the making, and a couple of a couple of decades actually before I actually started writing. So that one was long, long, long. As I told myself, I have a bunch of wonderful characters in search of a story, and then they found their story by complete and total accident. And that book, first book in that particular series, finally came out last year, I think it was. And it's not your typical science fiction. It's about a family who doesn't fight, but a family who works together. And I based it on my relatives. So planning, I'm actually a panzer mostly, but most of the time I'll just sit down, I got an idea and I just start writing. Then I leave myself notes going, okay, here's the next scene. Here's what needs to happen. Oh, and don't forget this story thread that you started that needs to be concluded. I finally learned that little trick and my books go a lot faster now.
I think that's really interesting that you waited for your characters and your story before you really started diving into it. And I love how much work that you have with that story Bible. That was a pretty sizable
That
Bible that you had
was.
there.
I am
It's
honestly both impressed and jealous.
Well, these characters were created a really, really long time ago, and I had worked years on it. I've started stories and going, that's not their
Mhm.
story. When they finally found their story, it was interesting. I had all these aunts, all these uncles, all their spouses, all these
Mhm.
cousins, and my grandparents, and it was, yeah, I have an experience that most people don't.
Mhm.
And so I used that experience growing up as part of my framework for the different characters. And I actually have in the book, there in the back, there is an appendix with here's the character, here's the name of their ship, here's the name of their cats, here's who they're
Mhm.
married to. Here, I lots and lots of characters, but that was something
Mhm.
I. And then my publisher did a wonderful job because I sent her my basic map, and I'm like, here's the map, and she got a hold of a program and did a beautiful job of adding all of that into actual stars, and it was amazing. And I said, hold on to that because we're going to need it for the other books.
That is
So,
so cool. It's interesting that you developed the characters before the story itself, and it's almost like you let the characters determine what story they needed to tell. That's what a fascinating way to do that. I really like that.
Yeah, that's actually really neat. I've had a couple of characters that are like that, where it's like, you know what, I don't belong here, I belong somewhere else. But I know for myself, I started thinking about Burning Ember, technically Pirates, back when I was like 12. I knew what the ending was supposed to be, and it was something that, well, fairly traumatic, but it worked and I liked it. And I never like, so I mean, I planned the ending, but I actually didn't plan anything before that until my husband shamed me into finishing the book. And then I started like, okay, you know what? I have this ending. I know what's going to happen. I know who these characters are more or less. I need to just get them to work. And I have to admit, I didn't really plan Burning Ember all that much. More planning went into Raging Inferno and Shifting Flame. And I say it like
Mm-hmm.
that, even though that's the third and second book rather than the second and third, because I had a Raging Inferno more or less outlined before Shifting Flame was even started. So, but yeah, no, I didn't plan myself. I just kind of I knew what was going to happen, and then I just started writing to get to that point. I just made sure I knew who the characters were. I had a general idea of the direction I wanted them to go in, and more or less where I wanted everything to end up as. And that was the
Mm.
extent of my planning.
Yeah, unfortunately, my characters rewrote my ending. I
You had an original ending that you planned out, and your character's like, "Nope, this is what we need."
Yeah, it was really strange because I had a certain point. It's like, okay, here's where the story is going.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean that's not the ending?
Gotta love when the characters take over, right?
Right.
Oh man, and I think that it's such an interesting thing. It's a great place to be in when we've developed these characters enough that we're able to feel like they come to life for us and they're telling their story. Dan, I know a lot of my methodology and my philosophy with writing is really based on character development and really based on characters. I have this strange belief that any story problem can be fixed by understanding your character and understanding the character journey. And it's interesting because so many writers struggle with different parts of writing, rewriting, editing, revising, when really it just comes down to A, what is the core character story that they're trying to tell? And then B, what is not being afraid to try things with the characters.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God's Gift was probably my first practice in a character-driven story
Mm-hmm.
because it flips between chapter. There's a brother who starts telling the story, and the sister goes in the next chapter, and it went that way all the way through the book. And it was really interesting um, to take that journey and watch this brother and sister who are really close. In fact, their whole family's
Mm-hmm.
really close, and go through what they had to go. Yeah, hello. And go through everything that they had to go through to get to the end of the story, which ended in a place I was not expecting
Mm.
because I had
Did
no.
you get feedback from your readers that they liked the ending?
People who have read it really like it. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
someone just read Homefall Search, which is the latest book out, and they said, because God's Gift is actually the prequel to two of my trilogies.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, I just finished it. Now I'm going to go back and read this other one. Because there are characters
Mm.
from God's Gift who come into Homefall Search and who will be in the rest of the trilogy.
Ooh, that's fun. That is so much fun, especially when we have a series, a trilogy, or a continuing story, right? So it's part of the same universe. Now, we've talked about it before, but finding other stories to expand certain characters, plot lines, or characters in other prequels or sequels, whatever you want to call it, is really cool.
Sorry.
How many of your guys' stories are connected, at least in like the similar universe?
Pirates is all connected, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually keeping that entirely separate from anything else I write for
Okay.
multiple reasons. One, well, as cool as the genetic thing is, the only other series that I have that would be considered post-apocalyptic would be
Mhm.
Animal Instincts, and well, that's clearly humans were driven to extinction by creatures they created. So I
Mm.
literally could not work with that in the same universe because humans diverged from that path instead of, because in one they caused massive climate change, well, exacerbated it, and it caused this huge massive flooding that destroyed everything, versus these people over here were like, you know what, we're going to make these genetically engineered soldiers, and holy crap, they turn on us and they destroy us before we can destroy everything else. So it was just kind of like a parallel universe that just diverged greatly.
Uh,
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I ask myself that all the time with the Scarecrow universe that I'm creating. Do I continue the core story through the series itself, or do I create any side stories with other characters? So far, I forgot who mentioned it, but I think for some reason people really like the Crow. They were like Crow and Pixie, and they've asked for somebody asked for a Crow prequel. I was like, interesting.
That would be neat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's with me. Unfortunately, I tend to also have short stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the future, some are like, "Oh, what do you mean? I'm going to mix this universe, and this." Okay, fine. Because doing my job was a mixture of my five systems and borders. It was post the Winter Trilogy, and my cat
Mm-hmm.
vampire showed up, and they walked into the second book of my other trilogy too. Hello, I'm here. What are you doing there?
Oh man, I love that type of thing so much. I think crossovers are so cool, especially if a reader's not expecting it and then you realize that it all ties together. I think
Mhm.
that's definitely one of the coolest things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Granted, I feel like I'm also trying to create a world where it has the capability to have crossovers with characters. I think I'm designing a world where the intentionality behind character development is very where it's very character focused. But not all worlds are really designed like that, right? Certain worlds, certain stories are really more designed around certain around a plot, more of a plot-driven narrative, and it might be more difficult to introduce characters in other stories based on whatever it is.
Most of my learning how to crossover actually came from writing fanfic, because I
Mm-hmm.
am a fan fiction queen for crossovers.
Ooh.
And I've got a story that is the new MacGyver, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate SG-1, Iron Man, Batman, um, Kindred, and Dark Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot of crossover.
It's, it's,
Yeah.
it's a lot of crossovers, and I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked. I had one scene that I had to write that I
Mm-hmm.
had to make it seem like they were old friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it came out beautifully. It's like you wouldn't be you just reading the scene, you would know they've been friends for a really long time, and I don't have to go into the whole background.
Mm.
Very proud of that scene.
Why do you think it came out so as good as it did?
Um, I think it came out that way because there were two of Lily Langtry is from Kindred, and I had an
Mm-hmm.
original character who was a cousin of the Collins family. And the two women are just sitting there talking, and you can tell from the way they address each other and they're talking to each other
Mm-hmm.
that they've known each other for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way the dialogue was written, the fact that they were sharing a hotel room, weren't thinking anything about sharing a hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been a suite, but they didn't think anything about it. It was perfectly normal for them.
I'm actually really curious, and I'm curious if this happens to you guys that often. And if you're here in the stream or you're just hopping in, welcome. How often are you working on one of your stories and you step back from the scene that maybe you just wrote it or maybe you just revised it, and you're like, that is the scene. That's gold. That is like the perfect, like the characters. the action works out perfect, the dialogue is perfect, the interiority, whatever is in the scene, and you just feel intrinsically that it is the right scene with the right characters with the right moment, and you've used the right language to convey that scene. How often does that happen to you guys? I'm really curious.
A lot.
And like we could say like a scene could be anywhere as short as like a single story beat. So maybe it might be like half a page, or maybe it could be a whole chapter. I think that can kind of be different per writer. For me, I tend to think in chapters. So I would think like, yeah, I feel like that chapter was really, really, really well done.
I think I've only had that happen a few times myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the other scenes and stuff I've written like aren't working, but there's only been maybe 4 or 5 over both my published books, all the ones and all the other writing I'm doing on the side, where I've actually had a scene where it's like, this is like the best scene, and these characters deserve to be here. And usually it's in very emotional moments. Like my ultimate favorite one is actually from my first fan fiction that I love that I got to expand on that, because the main characters, the two main characters of it, it was a massive misunderstanding, and they just yelled at each other, and everyone in the background was written just like, should we be running? And I reread that, and I'm like, this actually worked out better than I initially planned.
I would probably say Home Search, the entire thing, is like the perfect. I have four narrators, and you get the feeling of that tight family all the way through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it doesn't matter whether they're related to each other or not, but you still get that long story because it's the way the culture's set up. But they are
Mm-hmm.
like really tight family who support each other and work together, and it's that way all the way through that book. Because I'm also very proud of God's gift because I was great at showing the relationship between the brother and sister, and there's a younger sister there too. So it's learned. You learn eventually how to do things, and I do it so automatically anymore that I don't even think about it. Combination of education and just lots and lots and lots and lots of practice.
Yeah, gotta agree there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, really great call out. I think over time, I think the more that we write, the more experience we have. I think the more then we start recognizing within our own writing, like we know our where I feel like writers generally, once you've started writing, you're generally start becoming self-aware of why you're what problems you have as a writer. And especially the more feedback we get, the more we're like, we probably all know things that we're not as good at and things that we're better at. And I think when we can recognize when we've written something and we've overcome those inherent, our general, like the writing problems that we usually struggle with, and we're very happy with it, I feel like it almost feels like overcoming an achievement or overcoming a hurdle. And I
Mhm.
think for when I look back on the first draft of Scarecrow, and I ask myself how many moments did I feel like, okay, I feel like I nailed that chapter. I feel like that probably happened maybe two chapters, maybe 2 or 3 chapters, where I'm like, I felt like I absolutely nailed it, tonally, pacing wise. It was exactly what I wanted. Now, as I look back to the second draft and I'm going through the revision of it, I'm asking myself, I feel like I probably maybe increase that count a little bit. I feel like, okay, there's maybe like 3 to 5 chapters where I feel like I've really like nailed the pacing. And that's not to say like the chapters could still be cleaned up a little bit from cutting down on wordiness, cutting down on more like line edits. But in terms of like the character action, the dialogue, the interiority, I feel like it's the right fit for what I was trying to tell, and I felt really, really, really happy about how it came out. It's like I think when I wrote my original midpoint chapter, I'm pretty sure I was like writing it and I was like crying while I was writing it because it was just like so like it was just so perfect. But I'm so glad I was such like a small box on the screen that nobody could see me.
Just so everybody know, I'm past rough drafts now. I do what I call
Mm-hmm.
first drafts. And it's just because I've been doing
Okay.
this a really long time.
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't mean I don't go back and catch edits. In fact, when my publisher went through home file search, I actually went back through and caught things that she missed. I love my publisher.
Dana, that's actually that's a really interesting call out. What would you consider is the difference between a rough draft and a first draft? Because I think there's a lot of a lack of a definition amongst writers in general. If
Gotta
there's a
agree
difference
there.
between the two.
Okay, rough draft. This is splat on the page.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I call it. It is you sit down and here's what you do. You give yourself permission to write that rough draft, and it can be a complete and total mess. And
It
that's
can
okay.
basically be trash.
Yeah, it can be awful. all the pros, that's all the pros will tell you. Your rough draft is going to be horrible. That's why you do your rewrites. When you get to the point that you're doing first draft, it means that you are writing at a level where, yeah, it's maybe my first run through for writing, but I've already learned all of this stuff, all the bad stuff that I do, all the things that I have now trained myself to no longer do. And so I am writing at that first draft level. So that when I go back through and do my revisions, and I don't count that there can be rewrites through revisions, it's however you want to define it, I'm not catching a lot. Or if it's little things like, how many times did you use was in that sentence? Let's fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have pet peeve words, even for myself and as an editor.
Mm-hmm.
Was is one of my pet peeve words. But there are things that I have learned, like these are words you do not overuse. Was is one of them. That, but, said, yes, you can overuse said.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like four of my pet peeve words that I always watch for when I'm writing. Is it appropriate to
You know
use?
what's interesting, Dana? Anytime I'm editing myself, I feel like every writer has like 10 words, maybe like 5 to 10 words that they overuse. Would you agree with that? And it's different for everybody. Everybody has like their own like 10 words that they just overuse. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, but those are the words I watch for. Those are the words that I
Mm-hmm.
watch for when I'm editing other people's work as well. Just as
Mm-hmm.
an example, I have a writer who is now self-publishing and doing very well, that he
Mm-hmm.
handed me his manuscript. And this is back before we could send them via email. I
Mm-hmm.
went through one page, circled every single vat on the page, 22 on one page. And I handed it to him and I said, there's 22 on this page. Every single one of your pages is like that. And he went, oh. So he learned from that because he did ask me to do it for him and I did. But like I said, I have pet peeve words and I do it as an editor too, that I point
Mm-hmm.
out to people. It's like you can drop, that is a word that can be used sparingly. But most of the time, if you go back and drop it from your sentence, you're going to discover that the sentence reads just fine without it. And that's long, long lived. And I actually reached that stage in 7th grade, just to give you an idea how long ago that was. That I finally learned how not to overuse certain words. And that's where it started. And that was a long time ago.
And he's gone.
Yeah, he dropped off real quick.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, I heard it, and then the whole thing froze. Yeah, I know. I'm having as I'm getting used to the new studio setup this week because I recently relocated to a new studio. Anytime we like move or we transition, I feel like there's always an adjustment period where I gotta get the internet and the logistical side of it working to good enough quality.
Sounds
So
like
I might be dealing with little tech issues on my end today, but I'm glad to be joined by both of you guys. And this is a really, really great conversation, by the way. This really is. But I missed that last part of whatever you said.
I think I was talking about the words I was overusing, and I actually caught myself in
Mm.
7th grade. So that's like what, 13 or 14? somewhere around there.
I'm curious, when you guys think about your own writing, do you guys feel like you're hyper aware of like the things that you struggle with as writers, or things that you feel like you aren't as great at with writing?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
notice it in the moment of actually writing, but when I go back and I reread what I just did,
You're
that
like,
is when
oh
I
yeah,
tend to notice my own issues.
interesting. And do you think that it allows you to get better over time? Because really, if you're recognizing the issues after the fact, and the goal is like, okay, well, how do I improve the cadence while I'm in the active mode of writing?
Pretty much. Usually what I've done is like usually what I'll do is I kind of let my mind just kind of wander while I write, and I let my
Hmm.
fingers actually do the writing, and I
Hmm.
don't really pay attention to it. And then when I'm done like with a section or a chapter, then I'll go back and I'll reread it, and it's like, oh wait a minute, this is like really weak. This doesn't make sense. This
Hmm.
isn't that good.
Hmm.
And either I'll edit, and then
Hmm.
I'll notice that I don't have that same issue for like the next 3 chapters or something, if even that, or I'll have an or like one of my other problem areas will pop up
Hmm.
not like a few chapters later, but it's like once I catch it, my brain automatically catches that while I'm just doing this automatic writing. And then when I actually stop thinking about it, like usually like, when I haven't written like since the night before or something, then it's like that's when it's more likely an issue is going to pop up. Or if like if I haven't worked on something for like a week and I go back, then I'm more likely to have the issue. But I'll always go back, notice it, and then it's not going to be there for a while.
Hmm.
That's pretty much the same thing. Is you don't
Hmm.
always catch it when you're writing, but you'll catch it later.
Hmm.
One thing that I always advise people to do when you finish a book or a story or whatever, put it away for a little while and then go back and look at it.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I mean that's what I tell most writers. Do I do that all the time? Not really, but that's just because of where I'm at right now and my writing skills.
You know what's really interesting? I think my process for me personally is a little different, and I think it's because I think like both of you guys, I think I obviously when we're in the moment of writing, there's like it's like a stream of conscious type of writing where our creativity is connecting with whatever story we're trying to tell, and maybe those pesky characters in our heads. But I think when I'm in the flow of it, I think I do a mix of that stream of conscious, but I've almost worked in revising into my normal writing workflow. So like I can go back, and it's interesting. I didn't realize that I did it so naturally until people have called it out, since I written on stream for 400 streams now, until people have called it out over time. And they're like, something that you do, or something that I do, is that I'm writing and I'll hop back and forth. So I'll write a paragraph, I'll hop back, I'll check something, or I'll be fixing something. And it's almost like I'm writing and revising um, every single time. And that's just something that's come really naturally to me. Whether or not it's faster or slower, I don't know. But it's just something that's worked for me. So it's almost like I have this awareness of what I'm struggling with in the moment, but I'm allowing certain things to pass me by for like certain problems, because I'm like I'm aware of it, but I'm going to go deal with it later.
Yeah, all writers have their own way that they do things.
Hmm.
Because when I'm writing, I have to turn the editor off.
Hmm.
It's like you can edit and revise later. Just you shut up for right now. Because I'm both writer and editor. So
And I think a lot of writers do that. I think that's a little more common, because I think a lot of writers feel like I can't have that editor in, or then I get stuck.
yeah, yeah, I've got to turn the editor off. It's like shut up. You got to be quiet while I write. You're right, then you can fix it later. Okay. And that's
Hmm.
the big thing to understand, guys. Whatever you do, whether you're writing a rough draft, first draft, whatever, relax, enjoy it, have fun. You can fix it later.
Yes.
Hmm.
This is
Yeah,
not, even when it's published, it's not set in stone. You can always go back and change it.
Hmm.
I think that is
Honestly, I think that was a little bit of my
one of the
problem for
best
years.
things said all day. That is
I actually
I
think
think
that was my problem for
that.
years, though, with pirates.
Uh huh.
Is I I wanted to write it. I knew what I wanted that story to be. I knew what I wanted to do with it. It was literally my dream as
Mhm.
a kid and then teenager to get that published. That was literally the top of my bucket list, and I've done it.
Mhm.
Yes, my husband shaming me was what got me to finish it, but I think part of it was also I started enjoying it. I didn't just look at it as I want to do this before I die. I started looking at it as I want to tell this story, but stop putting a deadline to it. Stop putting some imaginary deadline to it and just start enjoying what you're doing without thinking of, oh, I need to finish it by this certain point.
Hmm.
It was, I think, in a way, it was kind of sucking the fun out of it. And then when I stopped thinking like that, I actually started enjoying writing these characters. It turned into a trilogy, and I actually just read the first chapter of the Their Stories novella, the one with the 5 chapters per book of a different perspective from a different section. I read the first chapters in my writing group last night, and they really enjoyed it. There was literally only one issue with it, and it was just a matter of how how the paragraph was formed, and that was like it.
Yeah, getting the feedback is really important because my writing
Mhm.
went here to here,
Mhm. Yes.
which actually impressed my fan fiction editor. And yes, I did have an editor writing fan
Mhm.
fiction. This is back before the days it was on the internet when they actually published it. And she kind of went, she was blown away
Mhm.
because I was in school and in college getting feedback from, there's nothing worse in a group than getting your work critiqued by a room full of English majors. I will tell you that.
Oh, yep. I remember our workshops back when I was in school with all students and the professor. I remember exactly what that was like. It's just different. It's definitely a different type of feedback loop.
Yeah, but it was a good learning experience for
Mhm.
me, and which jettisoned my writing really in a fast and short length of time.
Mhm.
Uh,
And mhm.
Go ahead.
And I think, by the way, I think this, I want to definitely call this out because you guys brought up a really good point of getting feedback. So I actually want to do this, do a quick shout out. If you're just hopping into the stream or the replay, welcome. We're having a great conversation about writing and feedback. There's actually a couple ways that you can get feedback on your story if you're here in the community. You can hop into our Saturday stream, the Story and Critique Show, where you can submit your story. It's linked down in the YouTube description for a live reading and a live critique. It's like an alpha reading. You can go onto our Discord. We have you can upload parts of your story and ask for feedback, trade feedback with writers, or you can show up here to the streams. We're always happy to answer questions. And we're what, like 500, 540 something streams and counting. So we're here every day. I'm here every day. Um, and I think any times that we can try to offer free resources, since we know writings cost money, right? Editing costs money. The cover design will cost money. All the things will cost money. So I think anytime we can try to find free options for writers, for you here in the community, I think that's always a great thing. Do you guys know any other resources or other ways writers can try to get feedback on their work?
Check your local, check locally to
Mm-hmm.
start with. Like I know Denver and Colorado Springs, we have huge writing communities in different
Mm-hmm.
genres. Uh, the gentleman that I was talking about who's doing self-publishing, he actually runs all of his books through. There's a big science fiction feedback group that got started by Ed Bryant and some other very big names,
Mm-hmm.
and he goes to that group.
That's
That's
actually how I used to do it. That's before I started this journey of my life. I actually used to go join in-person writing groups or start in-person writing groups, and then do feedback that way with in-person.
there's that. I mean, we also have Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Mountain fiction writers here in Denver,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it's in person.
Mm-hmm.
there's another group in Lakewood that I know about. Do I personally get feedback? Not anymore. Um, unless something gets stuck. Like I had a book out that had gone through 5 publishers, been rejected 5 times, put out a call on Facebook, got someone who wanted to become an editor, and I'm like, fine, you want to go through mine? And she went through it and she found some things that I missed,
Mm-hmm.
presented it to me, and I went, oh, I missed it, didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed it, and the 6th publisher took it. So it was just little things that I missed. And sometimes that happens. You get so close to it that you miss things.
I think we're used to looking for the bigger problems. We're looking for the wrong, like, it's technically the same word, but like a single letter can change what that word actually means. Or we're looking at, oh, we use this wrong character, we misdescribe this scene, but sometimes it's just, are we missing a comma? Or are we missing like an A or a the where it sounds fine without it, but with it, it has a different inflection. So that's what I've noticed with myself is it's the minor stuff like that that really catches, that really writers tend to miss, that tends to trip them up regardless of what they're writing.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, I have a form of dyslexia, so I have to go back and double check all of my typing. And I didn't discover that until 20 years ago, which is why I had a hard time learning how to type. And yes, I learned on the typewriter.
So it took you a little bit to to kind of figure out the process of writing for you.
Yeah. Once I got on the computer, it was much better, but I still have to watch where my fingers go.
Mm.
And it's just, we didn't know that I had this. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's something that's still kind of not always caught even today, so.
Well, I had problems in 1st grade, and my mother worked with me with spelling, which is why I can spell as well as I can. Which is really that we didn't know about it when I was that young. And don't be fooled by what I look. I'm a lot older than I look, guys. But one of the other things you can also do, just as a quick suggestion, is if you have conferences or anything and you get a chance to talk to a pro writer, approach them and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you for a minute. Don't be insulted if they say, no, I don't have time. But in the science fiction community particularly, you'll find that a lot of the authors are more than willing to, if they can sit down with you right after something, they will. If not, they'll meet you later.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is definitely one of the reasons. I mean, yeah, it's definitely one of the reasons that I really want to go to the conventions, writing conventions, conferences. I know it's on my to-do list. I think my goal this year is go to at least one, attend at least one as an attendee. Yeah, because I've been to my share of conferences and events before, but never a writing themed one. So I know it's definitely on my to-do list.
It's interesting. I've been to a couple. I was much too young, much too stupid at that time to really know what I was doing. I'm being honest here. But I've been to a few, and I've got one I want to get back to. And I've attended some virtually. But, you know, they're different. Science fiction conventions that I go to are completely different. But they're also a good place to network. To know people.
They are. What when you think about networking, Dana, because I know you're much more familiar with the conference and convention circuit. When you talk about networking, what does networking mean to you as an author?
Networking is you meet other authors, and if you are fortunate, some of them are New York bestsellers like Carrie Vaughn, Kevin J. Anderson and his wife Rebecca Molesta, Carol Berg. Those are some of our big names. It also used to be Ed Bryant, but he is no longer with us. And you get to meet big names. You get to meet people that are on your level. Like I still consider myself part of the up and coming authors. There was a whole group of us who started out at about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have left the area. That happens. But I still have a pretty solid network of people. And like Superstars, I'm maybe hoping to go to Superstars next year. It kind of depends on what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I went in 2015. Again, I was going through a divorce at the time. I was moving at the time. I didn't get out of it what I should have. But I got to go. But yeah, you get to meet a lot of very interesting people. And most authors are not stuck up, as I'll call them. They're more than happy to sit down and talk with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got authors that I worked with who are signed contracts with Bain, Tor, um, self-published, others who found their writing journey, and I was just a stepping stone. I've launched so many writers' careers, it's not even funny.
Mm.
Still willing to do that for anybody who wants to submit to me.
For what exactly?
This is the Search for the Nikki.
Oh yes, your anthology. That is so exciting. How long is how long are submissions open until?
August 29th, so they're open right now.
Wow. And once again, this is actually a really great call out. So I know that this is a paid opportunity for the stories that are selected to go in the anthology, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a
Awesome.
published
Is what types of stories are you looking for this?
mostly action adventure, but they can have romance in them. They can be on another planet. They can be in another time period.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. It's why they're going on the search is far more important than whether they find the key, or whether they find the truth. It's the why. As an example, I consider the Mummy kind of in this category, where Evie wanted to be recognized by the Bainbridge scholars. Her brother was a treasure hunter. Rick O'Connell, the adventurer, wasn't really looking for anything, but he found the love of his life.
Yeah, I could see that. And it wasn't really as much about the end goal as it was the journey for them to get there.
Yeah, the journey for them to get there, and running into the Mummy and all the stuff that happened. One of my favorite movies, guys.
I know, Mummy's a great classic. Mummy's a really good one.
Yeah, well, the one with Brendan Fraser is hilarious, but it's
I know.
also
I know. I think I still enjoyed the first two. I think I enjoyed the second one as well. Third one I was always mixed on, but Mummy's great. Mummy's definitely a great one. So Dana, if you want to give me the link or throw the link in the chat, I'll drop the link down for anybody who wants to go check out the anthology. I know you had posted it, I believe, in the Discord in our looking for the anthology Discord section for anybody who wants to go check it out. But send me the link. I'll throw that in the chat for anybody who wants to look out. So if you're wanting to write a story, and then what's the word count on the story again?
just a second. I'm looking for the link.
The link. Yeah, so anybody who wants to write a story for the anthology, it's a paid opportunity, which is super cool. So take a shot at writing a story, make a little bit of money on it. It's an action adventure about searching, which is a little open. It's a little bit of an open story idea. So I think you guys could definitely come up with some great stories. I think anytime we can find more opportunities for writers out here, it is definitely always a win. All right. So on that note, well, you're throwing that over to me, where I'm going to queue us up for a writing sprint. So what we're going to do next, we're going to hop into a writing sprint. We'll go 45 minutes on the clock. We're going to try, now that we're feeling a little bit more motivated and inspired, to just try to push and get some work done on our writing. And don't worry, whether you're brainstorming, editing, revising, author branding, or anything else in between, that's all part of the writing process.
Okay, where do I drop this for you? Because I've got it.
All right, there's a link here in the studio that you can drop it to me, or you can drop it to me on Discord, whatever's easiest for you.
one who says comments. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Perfect. Okay, my friends. So as you can see, I got our writing sprints set up. So let's hop into it. Like I said, whether you are brainstorming, writing, editing, revising, come join us. We'll check back in at the end and we'll see how we do. Let's see how much work we can get in. And we are all ready because it's time to write now. All right, and here we go. So getting some work done. I feel really good about that. I feel like I was able to get some solid work. I'm like right up to the start of the fighting. God, crazy stuff. How did that writing sprint treat you guys? I know we went a little longer there. I think I set it at 45 minutes and we probably went about 50. How did that sprint treat you? So
Got an entire chapter done and edited, finished the chapter before and started the next one.
nice. It definitely sounds like you definitely got some made some progress over there.
And it was a really nice action chapter too, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Man, how is that's good. Are you was it writing it for you or were you revising?
I actually just wrote the entire chapter and then I went back and edited.
Nice.
So it was both.
Nice. How'd the writing sprint treat you if you're here in the chat? WTC, I saw you hop in, my friend. You're like, looks like someone has gone lost in the edit world and stopped paying attention to the timer. You know what? Sometimes that happens. I know. You know, it's funny. My first the first 100 days, I would not pay attention to the timer a lot. But then I felt like that defeated the point of doing a writing sprint. So I try not to be I try to be aware of it. My time is so limited. I need to do a full day of writing soon. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do next week, and I'll just do 24 hours of writing and really push. Awesome. So I am feeling great. He's reading a really good manga. So I'm really happy. And especially with this scene, I think once again, because I'm working on such a complex scene with multiple POVs. Why is it complex? Not just because multiple POVs. I mean, I don't do a multiple POV that consistently throughout the story. This is kind of like a subset. It's like a standalone arc. But not only does it have multiple POVs, there's like it's a mass fighting, but I have to set all of the different POVs and the actions and the stakes within the chapter while introducing characters and making it feel like it's this whole like complex thing. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. And especially with the characters that I've developed. Yeah, I mean, of the 48 animals that I have that I reference throughout this the scenes, I was like, I have to make sure I reference animals in a certain number of times and make sure that when I have them fighting, which ones are surviving, which ones are dying, which ones are injured. So that way, if I'm referencing them again, it makes sense. And then I've also really tried to hype up the midpoint, the antagonist, the Tiger King, so that way he feels like what's the right word? He doesn't feel evil per se. He's not designed to feel evil. He's designed to feel, and I didn't want him to just come across like a brute. I don't want him to just be like a brute either. I kind of wanted him to be kind of like a little bit more of like an intelligent brute in a sense. But yeah, because I mean, he's definitely he's very like survival of the fittest type dynamic. But he thinks that he's the one that's going to save them all. So he definitely has this like hero's messiah complex almost in a sense. But I'm wanting him to come across evil, which is interesting. So yeah, it's interesting when you're writing characters where you don't want them to be purely evil. Because I need there to be this transition, so that way when we get to the climax by the end of the book, our main antagonist is takes us for a trip. That's the thing. So with villains, I didn't want to write a villain who's purely evil.
Those are always fun to write, I got to admit. Somebody who's in more of a gray area. Because it's like, how gray do you want them to be? Do you want them to be gray to the point they're almost a villain, or to the point where they're almost the complete opposite? It's always interesting trying to figure out where that balance is.
And I think that's what's interesting, because a lot of the characters who are obstacles throughout the first half of the book, I wouldn't say any of them are necessarily evil, but they're very like set in their beliefs that what they're doing is right in a world where it's very, very dangerous. And even this, like the tiger character is like, he's definitely a gray-ish character, but his actions are definitely not. His actions are not kind. He's basically capturing animals and forcing them to kill each other. And then even when I get to my antagonist at the later on in the book, the antagonist is interesting. I feel like I tried to cross the antagonist between I think somebody referenced it at one point. I think it was from an animal, because it's kind of like a childlike. No, their actions feel childlike. But I'm trying to remember what animated series I saw that reminded me. But I don't know. I'm blanking on it right now. But yeah, so it's really, really interesting. And then WTC, it looks like you said you did more editing of book 3 of my series and getting ready to finish edits of my anthology entry for the AWC. Also sporadically working on some planning for a new series that is bouncing in my head. That's awesome. Sounds like you've been making some solid writing progress, by the way. Really, really great to hear, my friend. Really, really happy, especially with everything post AWC. I know with the Off the Tube Writing Conference, they're doing an anthology, which is super cool as an added feature. And then we'll also be looking into our anthology for the Faded Fantasy competition for all of our semifinalists, which I still need to get the information out. But I'm not as concerned with that timeline. We're going to have that published by the end of the summer. So, and I know, Sol, since you're one of them, that will be involved as well.
Yep.
So I'll be getting all that information out for anyone who is involved in Faded Fantasy, any of our semifinalists. I'll be getting that info out ASAP. So we can get that ball moving along. Now, let's see, what else do we got this week? Tomorrow will be another writing sprint. What is it? 3 Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Come join me if you want to get some more writing in. So I'm kind of at that point where I'm like at a point in the book where I'm getting into these chapters, and then I'm in a good vibe, and then I have to stop.
That is always so much fun.
I'm just at a lack of time is my problem. Let's see. Saturday is the next episode of the Story and Critique stream. So our next Story and Critique show is this Saturday. Make sure that you've applied if you want feedback on your story excerpt. What else do we got? Sunday is the next is a live filming for YouTube channel members. The topic we're doing is how to write a book. I'm going over the whole process. Rough draft, or first draft, from start to finish, and what that looks like for the average writer. So that's going to be fun. And I think that's all that I got. We'll be back next week. So thank you again for joining me. My amazing fellow writer over here. I appreciate you. As we try to make progress, I'm like, I wonder what we were working on during the first writing group.
Knowing me, it was probably a fan fiction.
Well, we'll be back, my friends. We'll be back with our next writers group meeting next Wednesday, same time, same place, 4 Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for joining us. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kaufman, and this is
Chat Soul.
And we'll catch you on the next stream. Take care, friends. Stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
Right
now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now. Is that